Imagine standing in front of a camera, dressed in a robe, surrounded by actors waiting for your every move. The lights dim, silence falls, and someone whispers, "Action?" In that moment, you are Jesus Christ. How do you even breathe? How do you carry the weight of the divine, not as a painting, not as a statue, but as a living, breathing human being on screen? For most of us, the idea would feel impossible. But for Jonathan Roumie, the man who plays Jesus in The Chosen, it became his calling. And then came a conversation no one expected. Between Roumie and Russell Brand, the British comedian known for his wild past and restless search for truth. Two men, two journeys. One question: what happens when faith meets fame? Their discussion, part spiritual reflection, part artistic confession, cuts deeper than performance. It's about surrender, struggle, and what it really means to embody something sacred in a world obsessed with image. Russell Brand, once known for chaos and controversy, has spent recent years peeling back his layers, turning toward spirituality, toward meaning, toward God. When he sat down with Roumie, it wasn't just another celebrity chat. It was a meeting between the seeker and the portrayed savior. And what unfolded felt less like an interview and more like a mirror held up to every human soul. Because deep down, all of us are trying to portray something, a version of ourselves we hope the world believes. A mask we wear to look holy, happy, or whole. But what happens when the mask you wear is the face of Christ? Today, we're diving into that extraordinary exchange, exploring how portraying Jesus on screen can awaken, challenge, and even transform the soul behind the role. To understand the magnitude of this conversation, let's rewind. The Chosen isn't just another biblical adaptation. It's the first multi-season series about the life of Jesus, crowdfunded by believers around the world, streamed over 600 million times, and translated into dozens of languages. Jonathan Roumie's portrayal of Jesus has reached living rooms, smartphones, and hearts across the globe. People weep watching his kindness, his laughter, his gaze. For many, when they pray, it's Roumie's face they now see in their minds. That impact didn't escape Russell Brand. Known for his sharp wit and spiritual hunger, Brand began exploring faith publicly after years of addiction and fame. His YouTube channel, once full of satire, now dives into philosophy, God, and morality. When Brand invited Roumie to talk, he wasn't chasing a headline. He was chasing truth. Their dialogue centered around one impossible idea: what does it mean to portray the divine? Brand admitted that every portrayal of Jesus before felt distant, idealized. But The Chosen, it made Jesus feel alive, relatable, human. It's as if, Brand said, people finally see Jesus in a way they can love again. In this setting, a modern philosopher meeting a modern apostle, something beautiful happened. Two men, one questioning and one testifying, met in the middle of mystery. Russell Brand leaned forward, eyes sharp but heart open. His question was blunt: how impossible is it to play Jesus? He wasn't joking. Brand knew the danger, that portraying something sacred could distort it, that giving God a face could risk reducing the infinite to an image. He brought up past portrayals, from the Last Temptation of Christ to the Passion of the Christ. Each tried, in its own way, to touch the divine. But Roumie's Jesus felt different. Brand said, "There's something real about your performance. It's not an actor trying to be God. It's a man letting God speak through him." And then he added something profound, a confession almost. Some people, they see your face when they pray. How does that feel? The room fell silent. You could almost hear the air change. For Roumie, that question wasn't about ego. It was about responsibility, because when people begin to associate your face with faith, your flaws matter more. Your choices echo louder. Brand's curiosity became spiritual interrogation, not of Roumie, but of the entire idea that humans could channel holiness through art. What if, Brand mused, playing Jesus is just another form of prayer? A creative surrender that allows light to pass through a person, even if imperfectly. That question lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. Roumie didn't hesitate. His answer wasn't dramatic, it was prayerful. I don't see it as playing God. I see it as letting God work through me. For Roumie, this role became sacred territory. Every line, every gesture, every silence was an act of devotion. Before filming, he spends time in prayer, confession, and Eucharist. He describes himself as a vessel, not the source. That humility sets him apart. He knows he's not worthy to represent Christ. None of us are. But he believes God can still use broken mirrors to reflect his light. Roumie said the process transformed his own spiritual life. I've become more disciplined in prayer, more intentional with grace, more aware of my weakness. Playing Jesus has shown me how much I still need him. This wasn't a performance, it was purification. He even shared how he feels. Borrowed strength on set, a sense that something bigger takes over. Through that lens, portraying Jesus becomes less about acting and more about abiding. It's about stepping aside so something holy can shine through. Roumie doesn't want people to see him. He wants them to encounter the person behind the portrayal. And that's the paradox. The closer he gets to the role, the less he wants to own it. Playing Jesus is both an honor and a danger. Roumie admits that it's a constant balancing act between the divine and the human. If he leans too far into holiness, Jesus feels untouchable. Too far into humanity, and he loses majesty. Every scene demands a sacred tension. Roumie said, Jesus laughed, cried, felt pain, felt hunger. But he also knew every heart around him. He loved fully and forgave freely. How do you express that with one face? The challenge isn't only artistic, it's spiritual. Roumie's fame has grown rapidly. Fans follow him not just as an actor, but almost as a religious figure. That weight can crush a person. He admits to struggling with self-doubt, temptation, and the fear of idolatry. People confusing the man for the Messiah. But through it all, he clings to one truth. My job isn't to be Jesus. My job is to point to him. That perspective protects his soul. It keeps the performance pure and the message clear. Roumie's preparation for the role isn't about memorizing lines. It's about emptying himself. Each morning before filming, he prays, Lord, less of me, more of you. He fasts. He prays. He sits in silence. He attends Mass. He describes it as cleaning the mirror, removing pride, distraction, and fear so God's reflection can shine clearly. Roumie doesn't pretend to know how Jesus would move or speak. He listens. Sometimes that listening leads to moments of spontaneous compassion on set. Comforting a co-star, praying for a crew member, pausing between takes to breathe peace into a stressful environment. He lives the message he portrays, because for him, portraying Jesus is not imitation, it's participation. The result of that spiritual labor is breathtaking. The Chosen has become more than entertainment. It's a movement, drawing believers and skeptics alike into conversation with Christ. People write to Roumie daily, saying the show rekindled their faith. Some return to church after decades away. Others say watching his portrayal helped them forgive someone they couldn't before. Russell Brand himself admitted, "There's something healing about watching it. It's like faith sneaks up on you." That's the miracle of art. When it's surrendered to truth, it becomes sacramental, a visible sign of invisible grace. Roumie says he's not surprised, only grateful. If someone feels closer to God through my work, it's because God allowed it. I'm just along for the ride. The show's success proves that the world still craves transcendence, still aches for light, meaning, hope, and through The Chosen, millions are reminded that holiness can still walk among us, even on a screen. Roumie's story carries a lesson for everyone, not just actors or believers. We're all portraying something. Every day, we reflect what we believe in, our values, our loves, our fears. The question isn't if you're portraying, but who. Are you showing the world your ego or your empathy, your pride or your peace? Roumie's discipline reminds us that true influence begins in private. Before he steps on set, he surrenders. Before we step into our day, we can do the same. When you let God shine through your flaws, you stop performing and start transforming. Russell Brand said it best near the end of their talk. Maybe playing Jesus isn't acting. Maybe it's what we're all supposed to do, to let something divine live through us. That's not theology. That's invitation. The interview ends, but the echo remains. Russell Brand looks at Roumie. Once the wild comic, now the wondering seeker. And you can sense it. He's been moved. The man who once mocked faith now speaks about it with reverence. And the man who portrays Christ reminds him, and all of us, that holiness isn't performance. It's presence. In a world drowning in noise, distraction, and ego, maybe that's what we all need. A reminder that faith still breathes, that truth still shines, that love still speaks through human voices. Jonathan Roumie didn't just play Jesus. He reminded us that becoming Jesus, in how we love, forgive, and listen, is the calling of every soul. So if this story stirred something in you, if you felt that quiet pull toward meaning, or you're searching for faith that feels real again, don't just watch. Join, subscribe, follow, be part of a community that believes light still wins. Because every time someone chooses love over judgment, peace over pride, or humility over fame, Jesus is portrayed again. Not on camera, but in life. This is more than a story about an actor. It's a story about us all.